History's timeline is not the steady climb we were taught. Ancient artifacts exist that defy explanation, rivaling modern technology and shattering our entire view of human progress. This video uncovers 21 revealing objects that challenge everything we think about innovation. You will see history not as a straight line, but as a puzzle filled with lost knowledge and forgotten sciences. How did a 2,000-year-old device predict eclipses with clockwork precision? Why does a simple clay jar suggest ancient people might have harnessed electricity? By the end, you will permanently rethink the story of human achievement. What does true innovation look like when the past holds such profound secrets? The cool, dark waters off the Greek island of Antikythera held a secret for 2,000 years. In 1901, a group of sponge divers seeking refuge from a storm stumbled upon the decaying hull of an ancient Roman shipwreck. Among the shattered statues and corroded artifacts they recovered was a lump of green, calcified bronze that seemed utterly unremarkable. It was only years later, when the crust was carefully chipped away, that the world saw the truth. This was not a simple lump. It was the Antikythera Mechanism, an ancient Greek analog computer of breathtaking complexity. Dating to around 100 years before the Common Era, this hand-powered device was an intricate maze of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears housed in a wooden frame. When its handle was turned, these gears moved dials and pointers to predict the movements of the sun, the moon, and the planets. It could forecast lunar and solar eclipses and even track the cycle of the ancient Olympic Games. For decades, historians struggled to comprehend it. How could such a sophisticated machine exist in a world we thought was technologically primitive? The work of historian Derek J. DeSolla Price was pivotal. His painstaking analysis revealed the mechanism was, in essence, a sophisticated orrery, a model of the solar system that calculated celestial cycles with a precision that would not be matched for over a millennium. Its existence shatters the timeline we take for granted. This was not a mere curiosity. It was a testament to a level of mechanical engineering and astronomical knowledge in antiquity that was completely lost, only to be reinvented during the European Renaissance. Most astonishingly, it employed a differential gear, a complex arrangement not seen again until the 19th century, in the early engines of the industrial age. This single artifact forces a profound question. If the ancient Greeks could build this, a device that rivals the clockwork of the 18th century, what other advanced tools and ideas flourished and then vanished? The Antikythera Mechanism stands as a ghost from a different possible past, a whisper of innovation that was tragically ahead of its time, and it is not alone in its mystery. While the Antikythera Mechanism represents a pinnacle of mechanical genius, another discovery from the ancient world points to a completely different kind of knowledge, one that seems to crackle with a spark of modern energy. In the 1930s, just outside the modern city of Baghdad, an artifact was excavated that was so deceptively simple its true potential was almost overlooked. It is known as the Baghdad Battery. The object is a simple clay jar, roughly 5 inches tall, dating from the Parthian period around 250 years before the Common Era. Inside this jar, archaeologists found a carefully rolled copper cylinder, and within that, an iron rod. The jar was sealed at the top with an asphalt plug, which also served to hold the metals firmly in place, keeping them separated from each other. To a modern eye, the assembly is uncannily familiar. If this jar were filled with an acidic liquid, something as common as vinegar or grape juice, a chemical reaction would occur. The acidic solution would act as an electrolyte, allowing electrons to flow between the iron and the copper. This would create a small but measurable electric current, a potential difference of around 1 volt. In essence, this humble clay pot could have functioned as a primitive galvanic cell, a battery, over 1,000 years before Alessandro Volta invented his voltaic pile in 1800. The German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig, who first studied the object in depth, proposed several theories for its use. Perhaps it was employed for electroplating, to deposit a thin layer of gold or silver onto other metal objects. There are suggestions it could have had a medicinal purpose, delivering a mild, tingling sensation for pain relief, a practice known in ancient Greek and Roman texts. Skeptics, of course, offer alternative explanations, arguing the jar may have simply been a secure container for sacred scrolls, yet the design speaks volumes. The use of asphalt as an insulator to separate the two different metals is not an accidental feature. It shows an intentional understanding of the components needed to generate an electrical charge. If this was indeed a battery, it represents a pocket of experimental science that was never expanded into a wider technology. Why did this spark of understanding not ignite a revolution? Were these devices rare, their purpose so specialized that the knowledge died with its practitioners? Other, similar jars have been found in the region, hinting that this was not a one-off oddity but perhaps part of a localized tradition. The Baghdad Battery forces us to consider a history where the fundamental forces of nature were not entirely mysterious, but were being probed and perhaps even harnessed in small, forgotten ways. It suggests that the path to innovation is not always a steady march forward, but is often a flickering light, one that can be lit and then lost for centuries. From this ancient spark of electricity, we now turn to a discovery that reveals a startlingly advanced and surprisingly gentle approach to ancient medicine. Deep within the soil of Roman Britain and Gaul, a different kind of puzzle emerges, one not of electrical potential but of pure, elegant geometry. The Roman dodecahedron is a hauntingly beautiful object, a hollow bronze form with 12 identical pentagonal faces, each punctuated by a circular hole of a different size. Protruding from each corner is a small knob, ranging from the size of a golf ball to that of a large apple. These artifacts have been unearthed across Europe, dating to the 2nd and 3rd centuries of the Common Era. And despite over 300 of them being found, not a single written record, not one line in any Roman text describes what they were for. They are a complete and utter enigma. The theories are as varied as they are creative. Some scholars suggest they were tools for gauging the diameter of pipes or for sizing metal fittings, the different holes corresponding to standard measures. Others propose they were devices for knitting gloves, with the knobs used to manage the yarn. There are suggestions they were astronomical instruments for calculating the best dates to plant crops, or even religious symbols used in mystical rituals. Yet each theory has a flaw, a reason why it doesn't quite fit all the evidence. Why would a simple pipe gauge be crafted with such ornate care, often found in coin hoards suggesting personal value? How could a knitting tool be so widespread yet leave no trace of wear from yarn? Their geometric perfection is undeniable. The precision of the pentagons, the consistency across dozens of examples, points to a standardized manufacturing process, a shared understanding of their purpose that was so common, so everyday, that no one thought to write it down. This is the core of the mystery. It challenges our modern assumption that we can easily decipher the past. We look for complex, lofty purposes for such intricate objects, when the answer might lie in a mundane, practical task whose technique has been completely lost to time. The dodecahedron is a ghost of common knowledge, a reminder that innovation isn't always about grand inventions, but sometimes about perfecting a simple tool for a daily need that we can no longer envision. It stands as a silent testament to an entire layer of Roman life and ingenuity that has simply vanished from history. And as we ponder this geometric riddle, we must move to a discovery that speaks not of practical tools, but of pure intellectual ambition, an artifact that seems to defy the very limits of its time by attempting to capture the entire universe in a single, sprawling calculation. High in the Andes, a civilization built an empire without wheels, without iron, and most strikingly, without a written word. Yet they developed a system of record-keeping so sophisticated it managed a vast territory spanning thousands of miles. This was the Quipu, a device of stunning complexity made from nothing more than colorful, knotted cords. Discovered in ancient tombs and administrative centers, these intricate arrays of strings were the lifeblood of the Inca Empire. Each quipu was a tactile database, a physical record woven from cotton or the wool of llamas and alpacas. The patterns were anything but random. The position of a knot, its specific type, the color of the cord, and even the spin of the thread itself held layers of meaning. At its most fundamental level, the quipu was a brilliant mathematical tool. Using a base 10-positional system, different knot types represented units, tens, hundreds, and beyond. A skilled quipukamayok, or keeper of the knots, could run their fingers along these strings and read the data like a modern accountant scans a spreadsheet, tracking census numbers, tribute payments, and agricultural stores for the entire empire. But was that all it could do? Scholars like anthropologist Gary Urton have proposed that the quipu may have been far more than an accounting tool. The complex variations in color and structure suggest it might also have encoded narratives, histories, and laws, functioning as a true three-dimensional language. This idea transforms the quipu from a simple calculator into a potential rival to written script, a unique form of communication perfectly adapted to its culture. Its very existence shatters a long-held assumption that a society must develop a written alphabet to be considered truly advanced. The Inca built one of the world's greatest empires using a system of knotted strings, proving that innovation is not about following a single, predetermined path. It is about finding the most elegant solution to the problems you face. The quipu stands as a monument to a different kind of intelligence, one that stored its most vital knowledge not on a flat page, but in a vibrant, physical tapestry of information. This leap into three-dimensional coding shows how human ingenuity can flourish in unexpected ways, a theme that echoes again in a much later discovery, one that seems to predict the age of automation with uncanny precision. The concept of robotics feels like a modern dream, but its foundations were laid in the workshops of ancient Alexandria. Here, in the 1st century of the Common Era, inventors like Hero crafted wonders that seemed to defy their own time. These were the Hellenistic automata, intricate machines powered by steam, water, and complex systems of gears and weights. Hero's writings describe a world of mechanical marvels, from self-opening temple doors to entire miniature theaters where automated puppets performed entire plays, driven by the precise uncoiling of ropes and the shifting of counterweights. One of his most stunning inventions was the eolipile, often called the world's first steam engine. It was a simple sphere mounted to rotate on 2 pipes. When fire heated the water inside, steam rushed through the pipes into the sphere, escaping through 2 bent nozzles. The force of the escaping jets caused the sphere to spin, a clear demonstration of the power of steam and a principle of action and reaction that would not be fully harnessed for another 1700 years. These devices were not crude prototypes. They were sophisticated feats of engineering, designed to inspire awe and reverence, often used in temples to create the illusion of divine presence or in theaters for public entertainment. Yet this is the central puzzle. The knowledge was clearly there. The principles of pneumatics and mechanics were understood and applied with remarkable skill. So why did these automata not lead to an industrial revolution? Why were they confined to the realm of spectacle? The answer likely lies not in a lack of intelligence, but in the social and economic fabric of the ancient world. With abundant slave labor, there was little economic incentive to develop labor-saving machines. These inventions were seen as philosophical toys, demonstrations of human cleverness rather than tools for transforming society. They represent a path not taken, a pocket of advanced mechanical genius that flourished in a niche, brilliant but isolated. It is a powerful reminder that innovation requires more than just a bright idea. It needs a culture ready to embrace its potential. From these ancient machines of air and steam, we now find a clue in a much smaller, more personal object, one that suggests an equally surprising mastery over the very materials of the earth. The legendary swords of Damascus were not merely weapons, they were marvels of metallurgy, forged from a unique type of steel known as woots, which originated in India. These blades possessed a fearsome reputation during the Crusades. European knights told stories of swords so sharp and resilient they could slice through a falling silk scarf or cleave another knight's blade in two. Their surfaces were not smooth and uniform, but etched with flowing, watery patterns, a signature of their complex internal structure. This was not a simple alloy. The creation of Damascus steel was a high art, practiced from around the 3rd to the 17th century. It involved a painstaking process of heating iron with carbon-rich materials in a sealed crucible, a technique called carburization, followed by careful cooling or quenching. The result was a steel that was both incredibly hard and surprisingly flexible, a combination that seemed to defy the limitations of its time. For centuries, the secret of this perfect balance was lost. Then modern science peered into its soul. Using electron microscopes, researchers like materials scientist John Verhoeven discovered something astonishing. Embedded within the steel's matrix were carbon nanotubes, microscopic structures of carbon atoms arranged in cylinders. These tiny tubes, a frontier of modern nanotechnology, were the hidden source of the steel's legendary strength and resilience. The ancient smiths, without any knowledge of atoms or molecules, had stumbled upon a perfect recipe that created these structures naturally. This raises a profound question. How could such an advanced material be forgotten? The answer is that innovation is not always a permanent acquisition. The knowledge of how to make Damascus steel was tied to very specific raw materials, particularly ores from India that contained trace elements like vanadium, which were crucial for forming those distinctive patterns and properties. When the trade routes for these ores were disrupted, or when the guilds of master smiths who guarded the techniques died out, the technology vanished. It was not a step forward that was built upon, but a peak of achievement that was abandoned. The story of Damascus steel is a humbling lesson. It proves that progress is not a one-way street. An entire branch of material science, one that produced blades of near-mythical quality, was lost for generations, only understood again with the tools of the 20th century. It forces us to wonder what other advanced materials, what other perfect recipes, have been erased from history by the simple closing of a trade route or the silence of a lost workshop. From this lost pinnacle of earthly craft, we now look upward, to an artifact that suggests ancient builders were looking to the stars with an equally sophisticated eye. The Nebra Sky Disc was unearthed by looters in 1999, not by archaeologists but by treasure hunters wielding metal detectors on a hilltop in Germany. This simple bronze disc, about the size of a small dinner plate, is shockingly old, dating to around 1,600 years before the Common Era. It is, without dispute, the oldest known portable map of the heavens. Its surface is inlaid with gold symbols, a crescent moon, a full sun or perhaps a full moon, and a cluster of 32 stars, including a striking group of 7 that almost certainly represents the Pleiades constellation. 2 golden arcs were later added to its edges, and a final third arc, this one with radiating lines like a sunburst, was fixed to the bottom. When archaeologists like Harold Meller pieced together its history, they realized this was not just a pretty picture. The 2 arcs on the sides precisely mark the rising and setting points of the sun between the summer and winter solstices. To use the disk as a calendar, an observer would only need to align it with the horizon, watching the real sun set against the golden arc to know exactly where they were in the yearly cycle. This was a sophisticated astronomical instrument, a Bronze Age farmer's almanac and a ritual object fused into one. Its existence is revolutionary. For a long time, the narrative placed advanced astronomical knowledge firmly in the ancient Near East with the Babylonians or in Egypt. The Nebra Sky Disc proves that in the heart of Europe, over 3,600 years ago, people were not just gazing at the stars, they were systematically tracking them, encoding their movements into a physical object of metal and gold. The disc represents a profound blending of science and spirituality, where the practical need to mark the seasons for planting and harvest was inseparable from a reverence for the cosmic order. This artifact challenges the very geography of innovation, showing that brilliant minds were working on the same fundamental problems all across the ancient world. It forces us to ask how many other centers of knowledge now lost, once flourished in places history has overlooked. From this celestial guide crafted in bronze and gold, we now shift to an object that reveals an equally surprising mastery over the chemistry of the Earth itself. Held in the light, this ancient Roman cup performs a kind of magic. The Lycurgus Cup, a stunning glass vessel from the 4th century, does not possess a single color. When light shines on it from the front, it glows a deep, opaque jade green. But when a light is placed inside or when light shines through it from behind, the entire cup transforms into a translucent, shimmering ruby red. This is not a trick of the eye, but a miracle of ancient materials science. The secret lies in what Roman artisans 2,000 years ago mixed into the glass itself. The cup is what is known as a cage cup or diatratum, where an outer cage of delicate figures is carved from a single, thick piece of glass, a feat of incredible craftsmanship in its own right. But its true marvel is its composition. Modern analysis, led by researchers like Ian Freestone, revealed that the glass contains minute particles of gold and silver, each one smaller than a grain of salt, measuring about 50 nanometers across. This is the realm of nanotechnology. The Romans had, whether by brilliant accident or by controlled experiment, created dichroic glass. The effect works through the scattering of light. The tiny metal particles, suspended in a colloidal state within the glass matrix, interact with light in a specific way. They absorb and scatter certain wavelengths, changing the perceived color based on the direction of the light source. When light reflects off the surface, we see the green. When light passes through, we see the brilliant red. To achieve this, the craftsmen had to master a complex process. They would have had to mix precise, though likely empirically discovered, amounts of gold and silver dust into the molten glass. Then, through a careful and controlled series of heating and cooling cycles, they caused the metals to precipitate out as these billions of tiny nanoparticles, all perfectly sized and distributed to create the optical effect. They were manipulating matter at an almost atomic level without any understanding of atoms. This forces a staggering realization: the cup was not a one-off fluke. Other, smaller fragments of similar Roman dichroic glass have been found. This implies a workshop, a tradition, a shared knowledge of a recipe that produced this extraordinary material. It was likely a technology born from artistic pursuit, a desire to create objects of breathtaking beauty for ceremonial or luxury use. But the knowledge was so specific, so tied to the hands of a few master glassmakers, that it vanished with the decline of the Roman Empire, not to be recreated for over a millennium and a half. The Lycurgus Cup is a ghost in the history of science, a shimmering proof that the ancients were not just philosophers and builders, but also nanotechnologists, playing with the fundamental properties of light and matter in ways we are only now fully able to comprehend. This mastery over the miniature reveals a sophistication that echoes in a very different form, found not in a precious cup, but in the grand, organized layout of an entire city. The shimmering nanotechnology of the Lycurgus Cup reveals a mastery of the very small, but in the vast Indus Valley, an entire civilization demonstrated an equally profound command of the very large. Mohenjo-Daro, a city thriving around 2,500 years before the Common Era, was a marvel of urban design built on a scale that is difficult to comprehend. Its streets were laid out in a precise grid pattern, a feat of planning that would not become common in Europe for thousands of years. But the city's true genius lay beneath the surface, in a water management system of stunning sophistication. Almost every house contained its own bathing area with a brick-lined floor and a drain. These private drains connected to a city-wide network of covered channels that ran beneath the main streets, constructed from standardized, interlocking terracotta pipes. Public wells were strategically placed throughout the city, ensuring fresh water was always accessible, and a massive, watertight structure known as the Great Bath served as a central public facility, likely for ritual purification. This was not a haphazard development. As archaeologists like Jonathan Mark Kenoyer have highlighted, the uniformity of the bricks and pipes points to a centralized authority, a civic government with the power to enforce building codes and coordinate public works on a massive scale. The entire system reflects a deep societal understanding of hydraulics and, more importantly, a profound commitment to public health and sanitation. This level of urban planning rivals, and in some cases predates, the famous aqueducts and sewers of the Roman Empire by over 2 millennia. It completely shatters the notion that such advanced urban innovation was the sole province of classical Mediterranean civilizations. Here, in the heart of the Bronze Age, was a society that had solved problems of waste and water distribution with an efficiency that would be enviable in many later cities. This prompts a difficult question. If the people of Mohenjo-Daro possessed such effective and sustainable technologies, why did this knowledge not spread across the ancient world, transforming other urban centers? The answer may lie in the very success and isolation of their civilization. Their system was perfectly adapted to their specific environment and social structure. When that civilization eventually declined, possibly due to climate change shifting river courses, the intricate knowledge of its engineers and planners faded away. The sewers of Mohenjo-Daro were buried by dust and time, their lessons on public health forgotten and having to be painfully relearned centuries later. It stands as a powerful monument to a different kind of innovation, one driven by collective welfare and environmental harmony. Yet, for all its architectural brilliance, the Indus Valley civilization left behind another, even more tantalizing mystery, one etched not in brick and pipe, but in tiny, cryptic symbols that no one has ever been able to read. Buried in the ruins of a Minoan palace on the island of Crete, a simple clay disc holds one of archaeology's most stubborn secrets. The Phaistos disc, discovered in 1908, is a small, fired clay tablet from the second millennium before the Common Era, but it is unlike any other artifact ever found. Its entire surface is covered on both sides with a continuous spiral of stamped symbols, a mesmerizing code pressed into the clay with seals over 240 times. There are 45 distinct signs, from running figures and shaved heads to birds, bees, and flowers. It is a complete script, a message frozen in time, and to this day, no one knows what it says. The disc is a profound anomaly. It appears suddenly in the archaeological record, with no clear predecessors and no descendants. No other example of this script has ever been discovered, making it impossible to compare and decode through context. Scholars like Gareth Owens have dedicated decades to the puzzle, using statistical analysis to identify repeating patterns that might indicate a syllabic language. He and others have suggested it could be a religious hymn, a prayer to a mother goddess, or perhaps an inventory list for the palace. Yet without a bilingual text, a Rosetta Stone for this unique system, every translation remains speculative. This solitary object challenges the very idea of linear progress in writing. We tend to think of writing evolving in a straight line from pictographs to alphabets. The Phaistos disc defies this tidy progression. It represents a flash of unique innovation, a complete writing system that may have been the brilliant creation of a single individual or a small group, used for a specific purpose and then lost forever when that need disappeared. It forces us to consider how many other ways of recording information may have been invented and then vanished without a trace. The disc is a haunting reminder that not all knowledge was meant to be passed down. Some innovations were fleeting, brilliant experiments that died with their creators, leaving behind only ghostly echoes of their potential. From this silent, coded message in clay, we now move to an artifact that speaks a different language entirely, the clear, logical language of moving gears and calculated time. While the Phaistos disc remains a silent code, another ancient invention spoke a clear and constant direction. The south-pointing chariot was a mechanical marvel from 3rd century China, a vehicle topped with a small figure that always, unfailingly, pointed its arm toward the south. No matter how the chariot turned or twisted on its journey, the figure on top would rotate smoothly, correcting its position to maintain its southern orientation. This was not magic but pure mechanics, an early form of inertial navigation that functioned like a compass, centuries before the magnetic compass became widespread. The secret to its unwavering sense of direction was a brilliantly conceived system of differential gears. As the chariot's wheels turned, they drove a complex assembly of interlocking gears. The genius of the design was that this gearing automatically compensated for any turns the chariot made. If the chariot turned left, the gears would turn the figure to the right, perfectly counteracting the movement to keep it pointing in the original direction. Historical texts describe these devices, and modern reconstructions have proven that the principle works flawlessly. Scholars like Joseph Needham championed the chariot as a landmark achievement, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of mechanics and magnetism in ancient China that rivaled anything in the contemporary world. Yet, for all its technical brilliance, the chariot may have been as much a symbol as a tool. Its impressive size and complexity suggest it was likely used in imperial processions or rituals, a magnificent demonstration of the emperor's power to command even the fundamental forces of direction. It stands as a perfect example of how innovation is rarely just about pure utility. It can be a fusion of practical need and profound cultural expression, a machine that solved a problem while also making a powerful statement. This ancient guidance system challenges the timeline we often assign to precision mechanics, proving that such concepts were not a European monopoly. It forces us to wonder how many other brilliant mechanical ideas were born, served their purpose, and then faded from memory, their principles waiting to be rediscovered. From this mechanical guide that always knew its way, we now discover an artifact that points to a completely different kind of ancient intelligence, one that mastered the capture and use of energy on a truly monumental scale. Across the stormy North Atlantic, Viking ships did not simply wander blindly. They possessed a secret weapon for navigation, a legendary tool mentioned in their sagas called the Sunstone. This was not a mythical object, but a real, transparent crystal of calcite, also known as Iceland spar. On days when the sky was a featureless gray blanket, when neither the sun nor the stars were visible, a skilled navigator could hold this crystal to the sky and find the hidden sun. The principle is one of polarized light. Even on an overcast day, sunlight passing through the atmosphere creates a distinctive pattern of polarization, an alignment of light waves that is invisible to our naked eye. The calcite crystal has a unique property called birefringence. It splits a single beam of light into two. By looking through the stone and rotating it slowly, a navigator would watch for the moment when the two beams of light inside the crystal matched in brightness. This alignment pointed directly to the sun's position, even if it was completely obscured by cloud. Experimental archaeologists like Guy Ropars have tested this method, proving its stunning accuracy. With a sunstone, a Viking navigator could determine the sun's location with a precision of within 1 degree, a feat that seems almost like magic but is grounded in pure physics. This celestial compass predates the widespread use of the magnetic compass in Europe, revealing a maritime culture with a profound, practical understanding of optics. This knowledge was not written in manuals but passed down through generations of oral tradition, a fragile chain of wisdom that could easily have been broken. The Viking Sunstone forces us to reconsider the very nature of innovation. It was not a complex machine, but an elegant application of natural law. It demonstrates that some of the most advanced ancient technologies were not built but found, a perfect marriage of human intellect and the resources the world provided. It makes you wonder what other profound secrets are hidden in plain sight, in the simple minerals and plants that ancient peoples understood so intimately. From this mastery of light and sea, we find a different kind of environmental mastery, one that resonates not in the open ocean, but in the echoing chambers of a hidden tomb. Deep beneath the sun-baked island of Malta lies a world carved from solid stone, a place where sound itself was sculpted into a tool of profound power. The Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni is not a building erected from the ground up, but a labyrinthine temple painstakingly hollowed out of the limestone bedrock over centuries, beginning around 3,300 years before the Common Era. This subterranean complex, discovered accidentally by construction workers in 1902, descends over 3 levels into the earth, a maze of chambers, corridors, and burial niches. But its true mystery is not just in its structure, but in how it manipulates the very air within it. Certain chambers within the Hypogeum possess extraordinary acoustic properties. The Oracle Room, a small, oval-shaped chamber, is the most famous. A deep male voice spoken or chanted into a specific niche in this room creates a powerful resonance, a vibration that seems to fill the entire space, amplifying and echoing in a way that feels both physical and spiritual. The sound does not merely get louder, it becomes an all-encompassing presence. Researchers like Paolo De Bertollis have conducted acoustic tests, revealing that the chamber resonates powerfully at the specific frequency of 110 Hz. This is not a random number. Studies in neuroacoustics suggest that sound frequencies around this range can directly affect human brain activity. potentially shifting patterns of thought and even inducing mild, trance-like states of consciousness. This leads to a staggering implication. The builders of this Neolithic temple, people we often think of as primitive, may have intentionally engineered this space. They could have shaped the walls, the ceilings, and the niches over generations to achieve this precise sonic effect, turning their sacred chamber into a kind of technological device for ritual and transformation. The Hypogeum stands as a monument to an innovation that was entirely sensory. It was not a tool for farming or fighting, but for reaching into the human mind. It challenges our most basic assumption about prehistoric people, suggesting they possessed a sophisticated, experiential understanding of sound waves and their psychological impact, an architectural science dedicated not to material gain, but to spiritual and communal experience. This acoustic marvel forces us to ask if some of the greatest innovations of the ancient world were not made of metal or moving parts, but of shaped space and controlled vibration. From this underground temple where sound was harnessed to touch the human spirit, we now encounter an object that suggests an equally ancient and surprising grasp of the Earth's own deep history. Tucked away in a private museum in Peru lies a collection of stones that present one of archaeology's most contentious puzzles. The Ica stones are thousands of andesite river rocks, each carved with intricate scenes that defy conventional history. Their surfaces depict creatures that bear a startling resemblance to dinosaurs, some shown in active combat with human figures. Other carvings illustrate what appear to be complex medical procedures, including heart transplants and cesarean sections performed with precision. If these stones were genuine ancient artifacts, they would force a complete rewrite of human history, suggesting a civilization that coexisted with long-extinct beasts and possessed medical knowledge rivaling our own. The man at the center of this mystery, a local physician named Javier Cabrera, became the stone's most vocal proponent. He argued they were a vast encoded library, a record of a lost civilization's advanced science, preserved by generations who passed the knowledge down until it was finally etched in stone. For Cabrera, these were not mere artifacts, they were proof of a forgotten chapter in human innovation, a time when ancient people had somehow uncovered secrets that modern science would not rediscover for millennia. Yet the stones arrived with no provenance, no archaeological context to anchor them in time. They were not excavated by scientists, but were reportedly found in a cave and sold to Cabrera by local farmers. This lack of a verifiable origin story is the core of the controversy. Mainstream archaeologists point to the mid-20th century context, a time of growing public fascination with dinosaurs and ancient astronauts, as the perfect backdrop for a lucrative hoax. Skeptics demonstrated that the stone's surfaces showed fresh, unweathered carving marks, suggesting they were made recently, and the farmers later admitted to creating the stones themselves, using modern dental tools and magazine pictures for inspiration. This clash between extraordinary claims and a complete lack of scientific verification makes the Ica stones a fascinating case study. They force us to ask a deeper question, not about the stones themselves, but about our own desires. Why are we so drawn to artifacts that overturn everything we know? The debate they spark is less about ancient innovation and more about how we distinguish fact from fiction, and how the powerful allure of a mysterious past can sometimes overshadow the disciplined work of evidence. The Ica stones serve as a vital cautionary tale, a reminder that the path to understanding true innovation is cluttered with compelling fakes, and that our criteria for proof must be as rigorous as our imagination is boundless. This tension between a wondrous story and a skeptical reality leads us to a very different kind of artifact, one whose innovation lies not in challenging timelines, but in a brilliant, practical response to an unforgiving environment. While the Ica stones present a controversial puzzle, the Sajama Lines of Bolivia offer a different kind of mystery, one written across the Earth itself on a scale that is almost unimaginable. Spread across the high-altitude plains near the Sajama volcano, this ancient network is not a collection of pictures, but a sprawling web of thousands of perfectly straight paths. These lines, etched into the landscape by the indigenous communities over 3,000 years, cover an area of nearly 22,000 square kilometers, making them vastly larger than the more famous Nazca lines. They were not created by piling up stones, but by the simple, deliberate act of clearing away the dark, oxidized surface rocks to expose the lighter, sandy soil beneath. The result is a breathtaking geometric tapestry of lines radiating from central points, running parallel for miles and intersecting with a purpose we can still only partially grasp. For archaeologists like John Hislop, who mapped this colossal system, the lines represent a pinnacle of pre-Columbian innovation. They were far more than trails. This was an integrated system that wove the spiritual belief, economic necessity, and celestial observation into a single, sustainable technology. The lines functioned as roadways for trade and pilgrimage, connecting distant communities across the harsh Altiplano. Yet their alignments are not random. Many paths point directly toward sacred peaks like Mount Sajama itself, or are oriented to key astronomical events, such as the solstice sunrises. This means a traveler was not merely moving from one village to another, they were walking a path infused with religious significance, a journey that connected them to the mountains, the stars, and their ancestors all at once. The scale of this undertaking is what truly defies belief. Maintaining such a vast network over millennia required a deep, shared social organization and a collective understanding of the landscape that challenges our modern assumptions about what ancient societies could achieve. There were no bulldozers, no central ministries of transportation, just generations of people working in concert with their environment, shaping it not by force, but by careful, sustained removal. The lines are a testament to an innovation that was both practical and sacred, a system that served the community without scarring the land. In an age of massive concrete highways and disruptive infrastructure projects, the enduring, gentle presence of the Sajama lines asks us a profound question. What if the most advanced innovation is not about dominating nature, but about finding a way to live within it so harmoniously that your paths become a permanent part of the landscape itself? This ancient mastery of the outer world finds a surprising parallel in an artifact that reveals a startlingly advanced mastery of the inner world, the human body. While the Sajama lines mapped the outer world, a fragile scroll from ancient Egypt reveals an equally sophisticated map of the inner human body. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, dating to around 1,600 years before the Common Era, is not a text of magic or prayer, but a Chinese letter methodical manual for traumatic surgery. Discovered in the 19th century and later translated by the historian James Henry Breasted, its pages present a system of medicine that feels startlingly modern. It details 48 cases of injuries arranged logically from the head down to the spine. For each case, the scribe follows a strict formula: examination, diagnosis, treatment, and prognosis. The physician is instructed to look, to probe, to ask the patient specific questions. This is a world of rational observation, a far cry from the superstitious incantations we often associate with ancient healing. The papyrus demonstrates a profound grasp of anatomy, describing the surface of the brain for the first time in history, noting how head injuries could affect speech and motor control on the opposite side of the body. It outlines practical treatments for fractures and dislocations using splints, sutures, and honey as an antiseptic dressing. The most telling part of its methodology is the prognosis. For each injury, the text categorically states whether it is an ailment I will treat, an ailment I will contend with, or an ailment not to be treated. This triage system shows a pragmatic understanding of medical limits, a focus on cases where intervention could actually help. This document challenges the entire narrative of ancient medicine as a realm of pure guesswork and ritual. Here, over 3.5 millennia ago, was a science based on empirical evidence on cause and effect. It represents a foundation of medical innovation that would not be fully built upon for centuries. Why did this rational approach not become the dominant force in medicine immediately? The answer may lie in the papyrus itself, as it was a unique copy, perhaps the knowledge of a single school of thought or a master surgeon, vulnerable to being lost amidst more common magical practices. Its survival is a fragile thread connecting us to a time when innovation in healthcare was not about mystery, but about method, a brilliant spark of reason in the ancient world that flickered, but was never entirely extinguished. This early blueprint for rational medicine makes us wonder how societies build resilience, a theme echoed in the next artifact, which reveals how an entire city planned for its own survival against the elements. Rising from the high plateau of southern Africa, the stone walls of Great Zimbabwe stand as a monumental rebuke to any narrow view of history. Built between the 11th and 15th centuries without a single drop of mortar, this sprawling complex was the heart of a powerful kingdom. Its builders mastered a technique known as dry stonewalling, meticulously shaping countless blocks of granite to fit together with such precision that the walls have endured for nearly 1,000 years. This was not a small outpost, but a true city, a bustling center of trade and administration that supported a population of up to 18,000 people at its peak. The scale of the construction required more than just skilled stonemasons. It demanded a highly organized society with the resources and vision to coordinate such a colossal project. Archaeologists like Peter Garlick have studied the intricate layout, noting how the design of the great enclosure, with its towering conical tower and narrow, parallel passageways, reflects a complex social hierarchy and immense economic prowess. The kingdom grew wealthy by controlling trade routes that stretched from the interior of Africa all the way to the coasts of the Indian Ocean, dealing in gold, ivory, and other precious goods. For a long time, colonial narratives refused to believe that an indigenous African civilization could have created such an architectural marvel, attributing it to Phoenicians or Arabs. But the evidence is unequivocal. This was a purely local innovation, a brilliant adaptation to the environment and resources available. The walls of Great Zimbabwe challenge the very idea that technological advancement must follow a single Eurocentric path. They represent a different kind of genius, one that found a way to build an empire not with imported ideas, but with the very stones underfoot, creating a legacy of stone that asks us to reconsider where and how true innovation can flourish. This architectural triumph, born of isolation and internal drive, shows what a society can achieve when it looks inward for solutions. Yet, the capacity for innovation is not always directed toward building and life. Sometimes it is tragically channeled into more destructive ends, as a chilling discovery from the ancient Middle East suggests. The roaring flames of Greek fire were a terror of the ancient world. This legendary substance, a closely guarded state secret of the Byzantine Empire, gave their navy an almost supernatural advantage from the 7th century onward. Imagine a naval battle where the enemy's ships are not just boarded, but set upon by a liquid fire that clings to everything it touches. a blaze that burns even on the surface of the water and cannot be put out. Historical accounts, like those written by the Princess Anna Komnene, describe it as a sticky, fiery liquid ejected through bronze tubes or siphons mounted on their warships. It could also be hurled in clay pots, functioning as early grenades that shattered and spread the inferno. This was not simple oil or pitch. Its unique properties, especially its ability to ignite upon contact with water and resist dousing, point to a complex chemical recipe. Modern theories suggest a base of crude petroleum or naphtha, mixed with ingredients like quicklime, which heats up violently when wet, or other unknown compounds that gave it its adhesive and persistent quality. This was innovation born of existential threat, a chemical weapon that allowed the smaller Byzantine Empire to hold off powerful foes for centuries. Its very existence shatters the notion that ancient warfare was solely about swords and spears. It was a sophisticated technology, a product of state-sponsored research and development, protected with a secrecy so absolute that when the Byzantine Empire finally fell, the formula vanished forever. The story of Greek fire forces us to confront a difficult reality about progress. Innovation is not always about sharing knowledge for the common good. Sometimes it is about holding a monopoly on power, a secret so valuable that its loss can change the course of history. This raises a profound ethical question. Is a technology truly advanced if its knowledge is so fragile that it dies with its creators, leaving future generations to puzzle over its ghost? From this lost formula for controlled destruction, we move to an artifact that represents the opposite impulse, a peaceful and enduring method for preserving the most vital information. A book exists that refuses to be read. The Voynich Manuscript, a 225-page codex from the 15th century, is perhaps the most stubborn literary mystery in the world. Its vellum pages are filled from edge to edge with a flowing, unknown script, a language of looping characters that has defied every attempt at translation for over a century. This is not a simple cipher, but a seemingly complete linguistic system with its own consistent grammar and patterns, yet it corresponds to no known tongue on Earth. The text is accompanied by bizarre and beautiful illustrations that only deepen the enigma. There are pages of unidentifiable plants with bulbous roots and leaves that do not match any known botanical species. There are intricate diagrams of celestial bodies showing unfamiliar constellations and cosmological systems. One particularly strange section depicts dozens of nude women bathing in or floating through a complex network of green, interconnected tubes, a scene that seems to blend biology, alchemy, and fantasy. The finest cryptographers of the modern age, including William Friedman, who helped break the Japanese Purple Code during World War II, applied their full arsenal of analytical tools to the manuscript and were utterly defeated. Statistical analysis proves the text follows complex linguistic rules, yet the meaning remains locked away. This has spawned countless theories. Is it an elaborate, meaningless hoax crafted to deceive a wealthy patron? Is it a coded herbal preserving the secret knowledge of a guild of apothecaries? Or does it represent something far more radical, the sole surviving artifact of a lost culture, a pocket of intellectual innovation so isolated that its entire worldview has vanished? The manuscript's very existence is a humbling lesson. It demonstrates that innovation is not always about what we can understand and build upon, but can also be about what is lost, what remains just beyond our grasp. It is a ghost of a different intellectual path, a reminder that the past holds pockets of knowledge so unique they become permanently alien to us. This book, sitting silently in a library at Yale University, challenges our arrogance. It suggests that undiscovered technologies and ways of thinking might not be buried in the ground, but could be hiding in plain sight, waiting for a key we have not yet imagined. This profound mystery of encoded life finds a startling parallel in an artifact that reveals an early, intuitive grasp of the very blueprint of life itself. High on the arid plains of southern Peru, the Paracas Desert holds a mystery written not in stone, but in bone. Here, archaeologists uncovered a collection of human skulls dating back nearly 3,000 years, their shapes dramatically elongated, stretching far back from the forehead in a smooth, tapering curve. At first glance, these Paracas skulls seem to be a stark example of cultural body modification, a practice known across the ancient world where infants' heads were bound with cloth or between boards to permanently reshape the growing cranium, a sign of status, beauty, or group identity. But a closer look reveals anomalies that fuel intense debate. These skulls are not just culturally reshaped, they are structurally different. Their cranial volume is significantly larger, and in some cases they possess only a single parietal plate, where a normal human skull has two. These physical traits cannot be explained by binding alone, a process that changes the shape of the skull, but not its fundamental volume or bone structure. This is where the mystery deepens into the realm of genetics. Preliminary DNA testing on some of these skulls, promoted by researchers like Brian Forrester, reportedly revealed mitochondrial DNA with mutations unknown in any human, primate, or animal species on Earth. These claims point to the possibility of a completely different human subspecies, or something even more radical. Mainstream science urges profound caution, highlighting the need for rigorous, peer-reviewed analysis and the constant risk of contamination in ancient DNA samples. The ethical questions here are immense. These are human remains, and their study forces a difficult balance between scientific curiosity and cultural respect. The Paracas skulls stand at a tense crossroads, where a profound cultural innovation in aesthetics collides with a biological puzzle. They challenge us to ask if our story is truly complete, or if there were other branches on the human tree, other experiments in what it means to be human, whose traces we are only now beginning to uncover. This biological enigma, hovering between culture and science, leads us perfectly to our final artifact, an object that dared to imagine humanity taking to the skies. The Saqqara Bird is a small, elegant artifact carved from sycamore wood, resting for over 2,000 years in an Egyptian tomb before its true potential was glimpsed. Discovered in 1898 near the Saqqara necropolis, this object is not a bird in the traditional sense. While it has the head of a falcon, its body is all sharp, aerodynamic lines, with a straight, level wing and a distinct vertical tailplane that looks less like a bird's tail and more like the stabilizer on a modern aircraft. For decades, it was catalogued as a simple toy or a ceremonial bird figure, until the eye of modern aviation saw something else entirely. In the 1970s, Dr. Khalil Messiha, an Egyptologist and model plane enthusiast, was struck by its design. He noted that unlike all other bird models from ancient Egypt, which have legs and horizontal tails, this one has none. Its form is purely that of a wing and a vertical tail, a configuration essential for stable flight. The debate ignited instantly. Was this a child's plaything, a representation of a hawk deity, or could it be a scale model of a working glider, a testament to early experiments in aerodynamics? To test the idea, skilled modelers like Martin Gregory built precise, weighted replicas of the Saqqara Bird. Their findings were startling. When launched, the wooden model could indeed achieve stable, gliding flight for short distances, its design naturally correcting its path in the air. This suggests its original creators were not just carving symbols, but were keen observers of the principles of lift and stability, principles that would not be formally codified until the age of the Wright brothers. The artifact does not prove the ancient Egyptians built flying machines, but it powerfully suggests they were studying the mechanics of flight, turning their observations of nature into a physical form that encoded a profound understanding. It stands as a final, beautiful symbol for our entire journey, a representation of an idea that was born, set aside, and then rediscovered millennia later. It encapsulates the central mystery of all these artifacts. Why does human innovation seem to flicker, to appear in one era only to vanish and be reborn in another? Having explored these 21 revealing objects, a clear pattern emerges from the dust. History is not a simple, upward slope of progress. It is a landscape of scattered peaks and deep valleys, where brilliant ideas can rise in isolation, flourish for a time, and then be swallowed by the silence of forgotten centuries. Each of these artifacts is a testament to a different kind of intelligence, from the mechanical genius of the Antikythera Mechanism to the acoustic engineering of the Hypogeum, from the nanoscale alchemy of the Lycurgus Cup to the environmental harmony of the Sajama Lines. They prove that innovation is not a single path, but a multitude of parallel experiments, many of which were tragically lost. The real challenge these discoveries present is not just to our timeline, but to our arrogance. We must ask ourselves, what groundbreaking knowledge do we possess today that might be so fragile, so dependent on a specific set of circumstances, that it could be completely erased from human memory in 1,000 years? The past whispers to us that our current technological age is not an inevitable destination, but merely one more peak in a vast and mysterious range. The story of human achievement is far richer, far more complex, and infinitely more fascinating than we ever imagined. These scattered peaks of ancient genius reveal a startling truth about human progress. It is not a steady climb, but a landscape of brilliant, isolated flashes, a tapestry woven with threads of discovery that are later cut and lost. We see societies achieving a stunning level of sophistication in one specific domain, creating objects that rival or even surpass the technology of 1,000 years later, only to have that knowledge vanish, buried by the sands of time. The intricate gears of the Antikythera Mechanism were not improved upon for over a millennium. The nanoparticle-infused glass of the Lycurgus Cup was a feat of materials science that disappeared with the Roman Empire. These were not primitive attempts, they were pinnacles of achievement in their own right. So why were they lost? The forces that erase innovation are as varied as the innovations themselves. Sometimes it was the collapse of an entire civilization, brought down by war or a shifting climate that disrupted trade routes and scattered its people. The secret of Damascus Steel died when the specific iron ores from India became unavailable. Other times, knowledge was held as a state secret, so closely guarded that it died with its keepers, like the terrifying formula for Greek fire. And often, there was simply no economic incentive to develop a technology further. Hero's steam engine remained a temple wonder in a world powered by human labor. These artifacts show us that innovation is not driven by a single engine of progress. It can be sparked by spiritual need, as in the acoustic resonance of the Hypogeum, by the demands of art and beauty, as with the Roman Cup, or by the practical need to organize a vast society, as seen in the Quipu and the sewers of Mohenjo-Daro. This diversity challenges our modern pride. We tend to view our current technological age as the inevitable, superior in point of history. But these objects stand as quiet, powerful witnesses to a different story. They force us to confront a humbling question about our own time. What groundbreaking technologies do we possess today that are equally fragile? Could the knowledge behind a silicon chip or a global network be lost if the complex, interconnected system that supports it were to fracture? The real lesson from these 21 artifacts is not just that the past was more advanced than we thought, but that our own future is far less certain. To build a more resilient progress, we must learn from these cycles of discovery and loss, recognizing that true innovation is not just about creating new things, but about finding ways to preserve the most vital knowledge for the generations yet to come. These 21 artifacts, from the intricate gears of the Antikythera Mechanism to the aerodynamic lines of the Saqqara Bird, demand that we see innovation not as a straight line, but as a constellation of brilliant, often isolated, flashes of genius. Our journey through these mysteries reveals that human creativity has always pushed boundaries, frequently in ways that defy our neat historical timelines and challenge our most basic assumptions about progress. These objects were not primitive steps on a ladder leading to us. They were towering achievements in their own right, born from cultures that solved problems with the tools and perspectives unique to their time and place. They teach us that true advancement can be mechanical, spiritual, artistic, or environmental, and that its spark can be lit just as easily in a forgotten desert as in a famous metropolis. The past holds profound lessons for how we foster innovation today, reminding us to value diverse thinking, to protect fragile knowledge, and to always remain open to the possibility that the next great leap forward might be hidden in a place we have overlooked or in an idea we have prematurely dismissed. Let this exploration be a starting point for your own curiosity. I would love to hear which of these artifacts most profoundly shifted your view of human achievement, so please share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey into the mysteries of our past, subscribe for more adventures that question everything we think we know. Thank you for joining me in reimagining the incredible, untold story of human ingenuity.